Bonjour Year 11. So we are now recapping and extending our understanding of the topic that comes within certain relationships about future relationships today. So we're going to be looking at vocabulary linked to different types of long-term relationships, understand different descriptions of opinions on marriage, and that we're going to do that through reading and listening, as well as give our own, and recap the conditional tense to be able to give our own opinion of whether or not we will get married. Okay. So all of the work today is in a worksheet. You don't have to use that worksheet. You can do the work in your book. That's up to you. But you will need to follow the lesson as well as the worksheet for further help or for answers. Okay. Okay. So put the date to title, future relationships. Let's look at the topic of people saying je veux me marier. I want to get married. It is a reflexive verb to marry oneself to someone else. Je veux me marier. So we need that me there. Okay. So first of all, let's have a look at some types of relationships. C'est quelle situation de famille? What is the family situation that somebody might be in? Okay. So you've got some images here which give you some clues to what all of these words mean down the side. Some of them look like the English, divorcé, marié. Others we've seen before, sans enfant, avec une grande famille, and so on. But then there are a few that do not look like the English. Okay, so this is on your sheet as well. I want you to spend a little bit of time seeing if you can guess which of match up the images to the words and fill in the English for any that you're not 100% sure of. And maybe by process of elimination, you can work out a lot of them, or you might just work out 6 or 7. Okay, so let's go through these then. Célibataire means single. Okay, so make a note of that if you didn't know it on your sheet or in your book. Marié is married. Paxé is the word for a civil partnership. Je suis paxé, and I am civil partnership. In other words, instead of je suis marié, I am married. En concubinage, so it's a strange word there. We might hear concubine as somebody who has many wives, or rather many partners, sort of thing, but it just means in a partnership. So if you decide that they're not going to be married, but in a long-term partnership. Divorcé, divorced. So veuf or veuve, the masculine and the feminine spellings of widower for man and widow for woman. Sans enfant, without children. Avec une grande famille, with a big family. And fiancé, engaged. Okay, I am fiancéed. Okay, we use the French word in English, but in the wrong way. We say I have a fiancé, whereas it actually is a verb to be fiancéed. Okay, so make sure you have the English for any of those that you did not know. Let's have a look at some readings then of some different opinions from Pierre, Émilie, and Hélène of whether or not they would like to be married, whether or not they'd like to have children, their opinions on marriage because based on their parents, that sort of thing. Okay. All of the questions you have on your sheet and here start with qui. What question word is qui? So it means who. So we're looking at all you're putting is the name Emily, Pierre, Hélène, or maybe they mention somebody else. Be aware of that in exams, okay? But just skim reading at the moment, you would probably see that there's no other names there. So I'm going to go through in a moment what the questions mean to help you. But first of all, skim read the French questions. So pause the video, skim read the French questions, look at your sheet, then skim read the text and have a look for things that were mentioned down here. Okay, so about be qui veut se marier. What is the verb veut? Qui voudrait. Hope you remember that one. Vivre seul. Qui a de nombreux fers and so on. So look for words that are linked to this. And then if you need some help, unpause and we'll go through what they mean. Okay, so the question meanings then, pause if you need to make any notes. Who wants to get married? Qui veut se marier? Who would like to live alone? Seul is alone. Who has, remember this means has, so if it doesn't have the accent, numerous brothers and sisters. Who has divorced parents? Who wishes to have 2 children? Who does not believe in love? Who has parents who get on very well? And who thinks that being united or getting married, in other words, is costly or expensive, okay? So hopefully that will give you a bit of help when you're ready to check the answers and pause again. Okay, so here are the answers, okay? And if you want to go through any of that vocabulary in a bit more detail or have any questions, then please just ask me. Okay, so now what I want you to do is translate some of these phrases that were in these texts into English, okay? And ones that we can use as well in our own writing. So pause the video, don't just copy and paste them straight into Google Translate. You're going to learn nothing that way because you're not actually looking at the French words, you'll just be writing down English. Really look at them, have a think. Some of them you'll be able to do, something like si tu vas bien, perhaps not, maybe that's a bit more confusing. See how many you can do, okay? Okay, so here's the English translations for you to check and fill in. So in 1 or 2 years, if all goes well, à l'avenir, in the future, dans mes rêves, in my dreams, quand, remember the question, when I will be bigger, so in other words, when I'm older, si tout se passe, if everything goes as planned, a little bit trickier that one, so prévu, as like pre-seen. In the ideal, in other words, ideally, and then plus tard means more late, so in other words, later, okay? So pause and make sure you've got all of those. So now what we're going to do is answer the question, quels sont tes projets pour ta vie personnelle? What are your projects for your personal life? Okay, so we have a few sentence starters here, followed by a way that you could use the future or the conditional. I would like, 2 ways to say it there. I would wish, I am going, I have the intention of, my plan is to, and then some things that you might dream or hope for the future. Have lots of children, get married, live in a partnership, not have children, stay single, be happy, okay? So we just went through what these mean in the previous activity. And then obviously you would have some reasons why. So your answer might be something like, in the future, I would like, or I would not like, je n'aimerais pas, you can make that negative, me marier parce que, because, and then why. You might like to pinch some vocabulary from here. Perhaps you have an example of different marriages or parents, whatever it is, and then you want to use that in your own writing. Maybe you want to just talk about something that we haven't mentioned and you need a bit of help. You can ask me for that vocabulary, or we go over some of the vocabulary from the last couple of lessons about relationships and getting on with people, okay? So it doesn't need to be a really big, long answer here. Yours might be very simple, somebody else's might be detailed because they really thought about it more. There's no right or wrong answer, obviously, okay? So write your answer to the question, and then you'll see this slide on the worksheet, and you're going to use that to help you with some translations in a second. The translations might help you write your own answer, so you might prefer to do the translations first. Okay, so I will check your answers when you submit your work. So you've got 3 translations into English and 3 into French. Although we wouldn't need to actually do this in any like assessment for our marks, because they took it out of the writing exam, the English to French, it is still useful for us because, like I said before, you are translating into French when you are writing. So it's good practice, okay? So use these phrases here, as well as some of your own knowledge, or perhaps you need to look up something in a dictionary on word reference if there's anything you've forgotten, and translate into English these ones and into French these. I will be able to tell if you've just copied and pasted it all into Google, because this will make many French mistakes and the word order will be a bit funny in the English, okay? So don't just copy and paste. When you're ready to check your answers, then they're on the next slide. Okay, so here's the answer. So pause the video and check your answers. Okay, obviously make sure that you actually have done it. You're not just looking at the answers, because again, you're not going to learn anything from that. Okay, we're next moving on to the conditional tense, just to recap, because that's what we were looking at a lot in those phrases. So pour former le conditionnel, to form the conditional, il faut prendre, so do you remember il faut from the environment? It's necessary to, or you must take l'infinitif du verbe, so get the infinitive of the verb, et ajouter les terminaisons de l'imparfait. and add the endings from the imperfect tense. So if I was to put e on the end of a verb by taking off the ending, so if I took off the part that means to, and added AIS to this and j'aimais, it would mean I used to like, the imperfect tense, I used to. But anything in the future, anything that is yet to happen, we keep the whole verb, remember, because the future means that our life is longer, we're adding to our life, so we add to the verb, we take nothing away. So if we're going to say I would like, then we take I, obviously. This one starts with a vowel, so I just need the J apostrophe. To like, and then I add the imperfect endings. So j'aimerais, tu aimerais, il aimerait, and so on. So I would eat, je mangerais. We would eat, nous mangerions, and so on. We have done this before, so it's just a little recap for you. This is especially important for higher tier, but foundation tier, it's still useful for you to be able to recognize a couple of the I phrases. Certains verbes sont irréguliers. So these are the irregulars that don't follow the pattern. I can't say j'étais, I have to say je serais for I would be. So the top two are really important for us to recognize for use, but you might also need to start to recognize some of these depending on your tier. You don't need to write all this down. Again, you can make notes if you want to, or go and practice a bit of the conditional writing and I will check it. But we have got the conditional in our grammar books. Right, so we're going to do some exercices d'écouter maintenant. So there is a foundation, and if you want to fast forward to the higher, you can, but I suggest that you do the foundation and the higher if you have time, even if you are higher tier, because there is different vocabulary in it. And the speed isn't necessarily any slower for the foundation, it's just the vocabulary that they're using and the type of activity that we're doing, okay? Both are slightly faster than an exam text because it's just a native speaker, and that's really important for you to get used to. So if you are fast forwarding to the higher tier, the slides will turn blue just so that you can see where the foundation stops and the higher tier starts. If you complete the foundation tier and you have some time, you could either do the higher tier activity or you could do the extension activity, which is at the end of the higher tier listening. So fast forward to the end. Okay, so the foundation listening, you've got a pre-listening activity on your worksheet. You're going to have a think about what this question means and translate these words into English. Put a dot by the words you think you'll hear in the video clip based on what the topic is of the question. So pause the video and do that activity without listening to anything first. Okay, so the question means, would you like, we've just gone over the conditional, like would you, it's got the would ending, would you like to get married one day? So here are the translations, so you can pause and check. And once you're ready to listen, you're going to watch the video and tick the phrases in your grid that Louis actually says. So if he says le mariage, you would tick it. If he said travailler, you would tick it. See if you can spot these words. You're not trying to understand everything. You're just listening out for any of the words. If you need to watch it again to check, and then that's fine. Once you've done that, we'll come back and check the ticks and then we'll answer the questions. Okay, so here are the words that he uses from here. So he doesn't mention travailler, se reposer, se disputer, and 3 fois par semaine. So well done if you heard all of the others, all 8. Now you're going to re-watch and answer the questions. So Louis thinks that getting married is, going to tick or circle one of those on your worksheet. What is the best proof of love according to him? So write 2 things in English. What happened to his parents? Why would Louis want to get married one day? And why does he want to have several children? This answer is a bit longer. So all answering in English. So pause the video as many times as you need. Rewind it as many times as you need. And when you think you've found all the information you can, come back and check your answers. Okay, so here are the answers then. Louis thinks getting married is really important. The best proof of love according to him is proposing to his girlfriend and then asking to marry him. His parents got divorced, but he wants to get married to show that love can be stronger or love can last. And he wants to have several children because he's an only child himself, c'est je suis fils unique, and he would like his children to have brothers and sisters. Okay, activity C then. It's not necessarily a listening, but it's a translation. So there's 3 sentences that have been taken straight from the transcript, straight from what he said. For each one, you're going to choose the most accurate English translation. So do you think "Je pense que c'est une étape importante dans la vie d'un couple" means I think that it's an important moment in a couple's life, or I think that it's an important step in a couple's life? So you circle either A or B for each of these sentences. They're both very similar translations. You're looking very carefully at each word in the sentence. Then whichever one you thought was wrong, you translate that back into French. So say you think that 1 matches A, you then need to rewrite the French translation that would match B. So what word would be different? Because most of this is the same, so there's 1 or 2 words that are different. Which words would be different in the French? You could just write it above it or write out the whole sentence if you want, okay? Okay, so here's the answers then. So in 1 it was B that matched it, in 2 it was A that matched it, and 3 that was B that matched it. So then this is the correct translation. It'd be "Je pense que c'est un moment important" rather than "une étape." Un moment is masculine, so it becomes "un moment important" rather than "une étape importante," because these all end in E. J'aimerais me marier pour prouver que l'amour peut aller encore plus fort, rather than montrer, show. So we've got the word prove instead. And then I would also like to have lots of children rather than plusieurs, which means several. Okay, one final thing you can do then as part of a listening is something I always recommend, is to re-listen to a video or audio while you read what they're actually saying. Really useful skill really useful strategy for improving your listening skills by being able to see the sound of the word that they're saying as you see the written spelling. Okay, this is where the foundation ends. If you have time, go on and have a go at the higher tier. It won't hurt even though it's trickier, or you can fast forward to the extension task at the end. Okay, so the higher tier listening, before we start then, we have a pre-listening activity. Think about what this question means here. Aimerais-tu te marier un jour? That's what Anne-Dauphine is being asked in this listening. So what answers to this question, what reasons might you hear? So just have a think about the kind of vocabulary that might come up. You will hear Anne-Dauphine then use "il faudrait que" and "avant de." Any guesses what those phrases mean? Can you work them out? Think about "il faut," and then it's become "il faudrait," and then we have seen "avant." But what about "avant de"? What happens when we have a "de" with it? If you've guessed or worked out what they mean, then have a go at translating these sentences then into English, and pause when you're ready. Okay, so the question, would you like to get married one day? Il faudrait que means you would need to, rather than you need to or you must, you would need to. And avant de, avant means before, but it goes with a verb. We have an infinitive after it when we've got de. Rather than saying something like avant le collège, before school, if I want to say before leaving school, I have to say avant de partir. You can't say avant on its own. So this means before watching TV. So I've got that verb there. You would need to do your homework, and this means in order to, remember that in order to, so to get to school at 8 o'clock, you would need to leave at 7:30 before checking your Facebook account or Instagram, whatever it is. Okay, let's have a look at the listening then. So you've got 3 things to do as part of the listening. You're going to regarde le clip vidéo and note combien de fois tu entends les expressions suivantes. What does that mean? Pause and have a think. So it means watch the video clip, note how many times, so how many times you hear the following suivant expressions, the following expressions. So you could tally up or tick up how many times you hear her say "Je pense que," "avant," "j'aimerais," and "mais." The next time you listen, because it's probably quite difficult to do both at the same time, you're going to écoute encore et décide si les phrases suivantes, so we're using that word suivante again, sont vraies, fausses ou pas mentionnées. So what does that mean? So it means listen again and decide if the following phrases are true, false, or not mentioned. Okay, now faux normally ends in an X. It is spelled fausse like this because phrase is feminine. So have a listen. See if you can spot the true falses. If you need some help with what these mean, then after you've had a go listening first, come back and I will explain what these mean. And the last question you're also listening for, sa dernière phrase n'est pas très logique. Pourquoi? What do you think that means? So her last sentence is not very logical. Why? She sort of gets a bit muddled there, okay? Right, so have a go as best you can, and then we'll go through what these mean if you need some help. Okay, so just a bit of help then. Anne Dauphine wants to get married now. She wants to get married in a church. She would like to have children. She doesn't want to work. Her ideal husband would be funny. She would like to get married to someone who has a similar personality to her own. That's probably a bit tricky there, that Alice la sienne, to her own. So remember using true, false, or that she doesn't mention it at all. Okay, so these are the answers then. So they were mentioned these many times. Here's your true, falses and not mentioned. And then her last statement doesn't actually make sense because she gets it wrong way round. She accidentally says son bonheur avant le mien. So that she wants to marry someone who will put his happiness before her own. Maybe that's what she meant to say, but it's logical, more likely that she meant to say it the other way around. Okay. So last activity then with the listening is, as always, I suggest that you follow the transcript, so basically the written form of what they've said, as you listen, so that you can hear the sounds linked to the spellings. Okay, so re-listen as you read that for one final listening activity. Okay, if you have time then left, then what I'd like you to now do is this extension task. You're going to répondre à ce courriel de ta grand-mère. So respond to this email from your grandmother. Vérifier que tu as utilisé. What do you think this means? So verify that you have used le vocabulaire des relations. So vocabulary about relationships. Des verbes au conditionnel, conditional verbs, opinions et des justifications, so opinions and reasons. Des mots de liaison, that means link words, and des temps différents, different tenses. Okay, so pause the video and have a read of this, see what you think she's asking, and then we will go through what it means. So, ma chérie, my dear, j'espère que tu vas bien. I hope you are well. J'imagine que tout se passe à merveille à l'école et que tu prépares tes examens. I imagine that everything is going splendidly in school and that you're preparing for your exams. Not quite our reality at the moment. Hier, avec ton grand-père, nous avons regardé nos photos de mariage. C'était très émouvant. Yesterday, with your grandfather, we watched our marriage photos. It was very moving. Dis-moi, et toi, quels sont tes projets? Voudrais-tu te marier? Avoir des enfants? Je t'embrasse, grand-mère. So tell me and yourself, what are your plans? Would you like to be married, have children? Je t'embrasse, like I give you an embrace, I kiss you, I give you a hug. Grandmother. So basically you're using your answer you wrote before, but you're putting it into a bit more of a letter form so that it is not just a random sentence on its own, and you're also extending by including some different tenses. Okay, so although your answer before was just in the conditional, or saying what you'd like to, perhaps say something about yesterday, because she mentions about school, so you could say what you did yesterday. Doesn't have to be true, because obviously yesterday was the last day of the half term. So it doesn't have to be true, obviously. Okay, so if you complete this extension, just submit that for me to have a little read over as well. Okay, super.